Linda, my mother-in-law, has never been fond of me. I'm not sure why. Apparently, no one is truly suitable for her beloved kid. She objected to the fact that my spouse opted to stay with me, even though she obviously disapproved of me. We were married a year ago, and we had been together for 3 years. My spouse and I made a lot of effort at first to win her over, but she was never interested in us since we were too powerful. She handled me like filth. She would usually behave as though I wasn't even there, or that I was totally undesired when I would pay her a visit. My father-in-law was quite ill, which was the only reason my husband and I would go see her before we were married. We made an effort to see him as much as we could to spend time with him before he died away, since he was a nice man. Regretfully, my spouse's father passed away 3 months following our marriage. We were just happy that he was able to see his son's marriage before passing away, though, as he had been ill for a long time. We had visited Linda far less often after his death. She had made it quite obvious that she disapproved of our relationship. She did nothing except pout about it, even on the day of our marriage. We agreed to avoid her if she didn't like me. My spouse continued to communicate with her, but paid her fewer visits. His father had left him everything, leaving his mother just with the home, which was why he continued to communicate. He had to provide the money for her. She had been a stay-at-home mother for the majority of her life, and had little money of her own, so he would give her money every month. We did not feel comfortable cutting her off completely, though we did not have a good connection with her, so my husband continued to care for her when my father-in-law passed away. My spouse wished for her to remain unaware that his father had given her no inheritance. He explained to her that his father had left him instructions to get all the money as long as he took care of his mother, in order to spare her feelings. My father-in-law left his wife no money. We have no idea why. From what we could gather, their marriage was one of tolerance rather than happiness. But, besides the home, there was no reason he couldn't leave her anything. After all, they were together. Following the death of my father-in-law, my spouse looked after his mother. Neither of us felt comfortable leaving her on her own, even if our relationship was not very good. We stopped going to see her, but we still helped her. My husband was away on business last week when I got the invitation to Linda's birthday celebration. I had never before gotten invites to her functions, so this was unexpected. It was obvious that she didn't accept my status as his wife, since she consistently invited my husband to bring a guest. I received the invitation this time around. I talked to my spouse because I was perplexed. He informed me that, albeit much earlier, he had also gotten an invitation. It was obvious that Linda was only inviting me as a backup plan. He told Linda up front that he had a work trip that would prevent him from attending the party, but that she was welcome to go if she so desired. He advised me to call Linda to get her perspective before making a decision. Linda told me she wanted to make apologies when I contacted her. Since she believed we would be together for the long haul, she wanted to make up for the abuse she had received in the past. She genuinely wanted to give me a chance and show me some respect. Despite my doubts, I went because I thought maybe she was serious. I now regret the horrible choice I made. I thought Linda would meet me personally at the party. She had, to my astonishment, hired a doorman who informed me that my name was missing from the guest list. I showed him the invitation on my phone, confused. He informed me that I must have been duped because the invitation I had gotten was not the real one. This should have been a warning to leave, but I stayed and gave Linda a call because I wanted to give her a chance. When Linda and her friends emerged, they shouted at the security personnel to let me out rather than inviting me inside. She said she had no idea who I was. Her pals could barely contain their laughter, which indicated that this was all premeditated. Saying she couldn't let any sort of filth enter her home, Linda made cruel remarks. Tearfully, I made my way back to my car. I drove away and contacted my husband, who consoled me and promised to return home early from his trip, before the security personnel had to step in. I promised never to speak to Linda again, and blocked her everywhere the next day. Later, my husband called to tell me that Linda was screaming at our door. To receive the money she felt she was due, she threatened to sue us in court. My spouse said that the previous evening he had texted her to threaten to withhold her money if she didn't show respect for either me or him. He told her the truth, which was that his father had given her no money. Linda misinterpreted and believed she had a right to the money. I didn't file charges, but Linda was removed off the property when I phoned the police. Because of how she treated me, I believed she deserved this retribution. Now that she had embarrassed me, she needed to think about herself. Linda apologized by email to us 2 days earlier, saying she had nothing and that she needed our aid. She was depending on our generosity. No one else can take care of her, even when I suspect insincerity. My spouse and I haven't talked about this yet, so I'm not sure how he feels. So, when my mother-in-law insulted me, Aita wanted my husband to take away her money. First update. To start with, a lot of people have called me dumb for wanting to give my mother-in-law another opportunity. To justify myself, let me say that I really thought she was serious about making apologies. Everyone has an ego and makes errors. She's not the first mother-in-law to mistreat her daughter-in-law, but I know of others who have made changes to their ways. I went to her party because I felt that I should give her one opportunity. Though I don't think I did anything wrong, I do regret it now. In this case, I was not the offender, rather, I was the victim. Therefore, I don't think it's right to be angry with me for being a person who believes in second chances. That's simply my personality. I'm neither naive or credulous. I'm simply an everyday person. Besides, she seemed really honest when I had spoken to her over the phone before to the party. She was so adept at her act that I didn't think there was any cause to suspect her sincerity. She really did influence me. Therefore, I think we should give her some credit too. My desire to give her another opportunity and my attendance at her celebration both demonstrate my character. Her dehumanizing me by taking advantage of my choice demonstrates the type of person she is. That concludes the matter. I don't want to discuss the topic anymore. All I wanted to do was protect myself before more hate mail reached my inbox. My spouse and I have talked about it, and although we are sorry about what transpired at the party, we are happy that it exposed her true nature. We are aware of her current state of mind. She was still awful, not that there was any doubt about that before. It's simply more apparent today. We also talked about the email she had given us, and it became clear that we had been feeling just as bad about it ever since. After discussing it further, we came to the conclusion that she was not contacting us out of regret, but rather because she needed money to continue living the sort of lifestyle she had been leading up to this point. She might seem like we were her kids, but in reality, we were nothing more than her meal ticket because she didn't have anybody else to turn to. When we discovered that she had money, even though my father-in-law had given her no money at all, we pretty much stopped feeling bad about it. We had a conversation with the attorney who had handled my father-in-law's estate. He informed us that my mother-in-law had a specific amount of money in her bank account that her husband had transferred to her before to his death, but he could not explain why precisely no money had been left to her. She always had a ton of valuables she could sell if she was truly having trouble. In the worst-case scenario, she would ask her relatives to take care of her and beg them for money. The bottom line was that, even after her extreme disdain for us, we did not need to continue providing for her. She could have survived without us, of course, but She didn't want to, since she didn't want to use her own money. All her life she had been like that. She wanted to present herself as a poor, defenceless girl in need, so that my spouse and I would feel sorry for her and continue to give her money, even though she would still treat us horribly. She tricked us for a time, totally manipulating us into feeling bad for her. However, we refused to let her control us once more. Although we are now aware of her pranks, she is something of a master at it. She won't be able to con us again with much ease. She wrote us that email a week ago, and we still haven't replied to her. We also won't do so. We don't want anything to do with her. Therefore, we will keep ignoring her. With the money she now has, she can manage if she quits living such an ostentatious lifestyle and above her means. She lied to us about being helpless in the first place. Therefore, we won't be feeling sorry for her and helping her any longer. To be very honest, I'm simply happy that I can put her behind me. I'd found it really hard to keep my hate for her in check, while also coming to terms with the idea that she will be in my life because of my spouse. But I feel much better about things now that he's over her. Let me be clear, he was never a mama's boy in the first place. However, he yearned to be able to look after his parents just as any other son would. He had kept in touch with her for that reason. Sadly, it is now very clear that Linda is not deserving of it. If she had only attempted to be polite to me, she might have had an extremely simple life. However, it's true that some individuals are simply not as intelligent as others and allow their egos to get in the way of what's best for them. First update. Hello. First things first. I've been called foolish and other derogatory things for trying to give my mother-in-law a chance. Just to justify myself, let me add that I really, really wanted to think that perhaps she was earnest in her desire to have a reconciliation with me. Everyone has an ego and is prone to making blunders. Although she's undoubtedly not the first mother-in-law to mistreat her daughter-in-law, I have heard of others who have made changes to their ways. I attended her party because I felt it would be appropriate to give her one opportunity. I'm sorry about it. However, I don't believe I did anything improper. I wasn't the one who did it. I was the victim. Therefore, I don't think it's appropriate to be angry with me for wanting to offer them a second opportunity. That's simply my personality. Second update. Hello. 2 weeks have passed since Linda's email to both of us. She did not get in touch with us again for a very long period after that. But yesterday she returned to our house while my husband and I were eating supper. She wasn't shouting at us this time, so I was ready to call the police again. Instead, she just started bawling at our doorway after ringing the doorbell and introducing herself. My spouse and I were genuinely unsure of what to do at that time. This could be just another one of her ploys to make us feel sorry for her and give us the impression that we should feel obligated to assist her. However, she was crying on our doorway, and I believe that anyone who was in our position would have felt the same way. My spouse and I had a quick conversation and agreed that instead of opening the door, we would try to treat her gently. It would not be wise to call the police while she was in that situation. We told her over the intercom that we would be happy to give her some space to gather her thoughts and get out. We really didn't want to contact the police again, but if she had missed that chance, we would have been forced to. It was now entirely up to her what she desired. In response, she stated that she didn't need any money from us. All she wanted to do was apologize profusely. She was aware that this apology was a bit late, but because she was alone now, she had come to understand how crucial it was for her to have her family close by. Even her friends had families of their own who loved them and spent time with them, so she couldn't really fill that gap in her life with lavish parties and hanging out with her pals. She truly missed us, especially her son, so even if we didn't want to give her money, the least we could do was pay her a visit occasionally. We were at a loss for words, so we just remained silent as she spoke on. She also expressed her regret for not being entirely truthful with us when we failed to reply. Although, to be fair, we hadn't been totally truthful with her either. She hadn't disclosed to us that her husband had in fact given her some money before to his death. She mentioned that her son had not informed her that her husband had left her with no money at all, merely to protect her feelings. Although it was reasonable in a way, she believed that if our family was to be happy and healthy, they both needed to quit lying to and disappointing one another. She wanted to tell the truth to both of us, and said that she had felt throughout her life that no woman could ever be good enough for her son, which is why she did that horrible thing on her birthday. I think it's true that she hadn't approved of me because I was too brazen, too vocal, and too ambitious. However, I fail to see how that was meant to be a source of contention in our union. That being said, that's the reason Linda had never given me her blessing. She became even more resentful of me when she understood that because my husband was smitten with me, her approval meant nothing anymore. She said that she and her spouse had never had a pleasant marriage, and that she had to make many sacrifices during their time together. However, she was happy with him, and insidiously, she had begun to place the same weight of expectations on me. She began to despise me when I failed to live up to her expectations. She had significant difficulties, and she resented the fact that her son liked me so much. However, she did not want to lose the only family she had, so she was prepared to work through them in order to keep her connection with us intact. We're still leery of her, even though I felt that was really honest and raw of her. Following a little period of silence, I informed her that we would discuss our options, but we simply needed a little quiet time to think this through for the time being. She then departed. She made one final apology to us before she left. My spouse and I are really bewildered right now and unsure of what to do. Given our utter lack of direction, any guidance on what to proceed would be greatly welcomed. Not only do we not want to be cruel, but we also do not want to be coerced into doing anything again. To be honest, none of us knows what to trust these days. Of all the things she said, I suppose she was most accurate when she mentioned that my husband's family needed to quit holding secrets and lying to one another. Version 3. Ironically, I said in my last post that my husband's family needs to quit hiding secrets from one another. Given the gravity of what we have discovered, I will continue to stand by that assertion in this update. It seems that my father-in-law's attorney had been under strict orders not to provide us with the reason why his client had not left any money to Linda, which is why he had been reluctant to provide it to us. But that was just my father-in-law being a buddy. It wasn't really official or formal. He was under no legal obligation to give us the truth, but since we persisted in pressing him, he felt compelled to. I'm not sure why, but I felt instinctively that discovering the truth about this would blow a lot of things apart, and my intuition was correct. Linda's purported wealth appears to have come from her affair partner, rather than something her husband had left her. One of her college pals, who had been, and still was, fascinated with her, had been having an affair with her. When the man Linda was seeing was still alive, she had never mentioned it. But she lost him to a heart attack 3 years ago, around the time I started dating my husband. He had given everything to her because he didn't have a family of his own. It wasn't until long later that Linda eventually informed my father-in-law the truth. There was little he could do for the few months before he died. It would be useless to file for divorce because he knew he was dying. He concluded that leaving all of his possessions to his kid and not leaving anything to her, aside from the house, was the only way he could exact revenge on her. He purposely left the home to her, knowing full well that she would not suspect anything and would not attempt to challenge the will after his death. We also learned that what Linda had stated about her spouse requiring a lot of sacrifice during their marriage was a bunch of bullshit. After she married and had my husband, my father-in-law had given her permission to work. It was, however, she who declared her desire to be a stay-at-home mother. Since she had always relied on others to shoulder her burdens, the only thing she had ever lost in her life was her dignity. That being said, having discovered the truth, we also know that she was acting when she visited our home to say how much she missed us. We avoided contacting her after that, which is a good thing because it would have meant that we were duped once more. If it had occurred, we would have felt very foolish. She is a really awful person who lies and cheats. It is best for us if we keep our distance from her. Fourth update. Hi there. So even though we hadn't spoken for a month, Linda made another attempt to get in touch with us. I suppose it has to do with the recent announcement on social media of my pregnancy. However, she made a show of being unaware of it. She wrote to us saying it had been long enough since our last conversation, and she was very looking forward to hearing from us. We ought to have been able to decide by now what our goals were for the future. She was correct. We didn't actually take too long to decide what we wanted. Our desire was for her to refrain from coming. We thus texted her to let her know that we were aware of her affair and other things, and that we no longer wanted to be in contact with her. We assured her that if she found herself alone at this time, it was because she earned it. The only person she truly cared about was herself. She had never regarded anybody else in her life. She ought to be appreciative that she can now spend time with the only person she truly loves, who is herself. She can always locate another man to have an affair with and rely on him in case she runs out of money. She's over her son, though, at least for now. She had upset us sufficiently that it was necessary to deliver this really stern message. We need our peace now that we are starting a new chapter in our lives, and we also need her to stay the hell away from us. She's probably not going to be deterred by this message, and when I'm nearing the end of my pregnancy in a few months, she's going to try again. However, my spouse and I have previously discussed the issue and agreed that should she continue to cause us any trouble, we will seek a restraining order against her and cross our fingers. We also want to move into a new home, and we'll take precautions to ensure that no one tells her the address. We need a larger room nonetheless, what with a baby on the way. All I want is to become a mother, and I can't